Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Way T Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health podcast and show. We're delighted today because we have a world-class expert to join us who's going to teach us about deuterium-depleted water and some of the evidence over the last 60 years of how health research shows that even normal levels of deuterium in all drinking water and foods pose a health threat to human health. Deuterium interferes with cellular energy production, overall metabolism, and cell development and division. And today, Robert Slovak will be joining us, who is an international water scientist, who is regarded as one of the world's foremost water experts and is currently working on deuterium-depleted water. Throughout his career, he has written hundreds of articles and presentations on water technology, water quality, and consumer advice. Robert is best known for co-founding Water Factory Systems in the early 1970s with his brother and was among the early developers of reverse osmosis technology and its many applications. We were chatting earlier before the podcast, and you've got a fascinating background. You want to share a little bit about maybe a little bit of your history, what you can share about how you ended up getting into the deuterium conversation?
Well, you know, my education was as an astronautical engineer, which is the people who design missiles, and that people call me the rocket scientist for a joke. And this was during the Vietnam War. I was in the PhD program in New York at a astronautical institute, the Guggenheim School of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and the whole class was actually, except for the girl, was drafted. Now, because I was doing a top secret project, I couldn't be drafted, but they sent me to a place to work on the Minuteman missile in Anaheim, California. That's why I got here.
Wow.
And I worked on that. And while I was in the military industrial complex, I became like, okay, this isn't really for me. You know, at one point I was hoping ultimately, had that all not happened, that the Vietnam War not happened, I was going for being an astronaut, okay? But it never materialized.
Right.
So worked for the military industrial complex, got bored, and ran into an emerging technology called membrane separation.
Okay,
membrane separation is the big category for reverse osmosis, nanofiltration, a whole emerging science. Because reverse osmosis just startled the world because of its capability of desalinating the oceans to make fresh water, you can imagine what a big deal it was. I mean, it was so big a deal, the government said, we're actually running the project through the Department of Interior. And then all these companies joined in, all the high technology companies to help. And my brother and I were part of this. And we focused on not desalination, but we focused on all the other applications. I mean, we made water for laboratories. We made the first drinking water systems that half the world has under their sinks now. And, you know, we did things for hemodialysis, endless. And my favorite thing to talk about is that we created in the early 1981 spot-free rinse car wash. Okay,
that's super cool.
Have you ever used? I don't know if you've ever used it.
Yeah, I think everybody in the world's been there at one point.
I go all to high technology, then I tell them my favorite thing was introducing this to the car wash industry, and now it's everywhere. So anyway, that's what brought me. And for the next 40 some years, we really taught the world, North America and the world, about this new technology. And we brought it every country, you know, from you know, Istanbul to Rio de Janeiro. And so we became very well known in the water sciences and so on. And the strange part of the story is after I retired in 1996, my brother and I had sold our company. each went into the world to continue teaching water technology. I was invited to go to Brazil, and when they saw what I could bring for them, and Brazil has all the resources, but none of the water technology. I mean, I ended up making magazines, books, college courses, etc., in water technology. And in doing one of the projects I was part of, I became deathly ill.
Oh, what
in a remote area. I had what you would call bacterial gastroenteritis, a very serious case. It was in an out of the way area in which there wasn't good medical care. Okay. And this is what changed my life and made it so I end up meeting you ultimately in the health space. Okay. So I am like, I need to get a helicopter airlifted out of here. I need to go to a hospital. I know what this is. It ain't gonna happen, Mr. Slovak. So, and my friends know this and love this story. And I wasn't even thinking of doing this for this purpose, and I didn't think of telling you this story. But a guy in this remote area gives me this exact thing.
Wow, Quinton, that's amazing. That's
okay.
Incredible. Yeah.
So he gives me this, and I'm going, "What do you, Marcelo? What do you really think this is going to do for me?" He said, "This is our doctor. We don't have a clinic. We don't have a doctor. You're going to have to go with this in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll figure out what to do." I go, "What do I do with it?" "What is it?" He said, "It's made from seawater." I said, "What do I do?" He said, "Take 1 per hour. This is going to make you feel better." Well, I took all 6 at over a period of 6 hours. It was gone. I didn't know if I was dead and happy or I really was cured. Okay. it turned, yeah, like a near-death experience. So this changed my life. It changed me from a water expert to someone pursuing health and wellness like you. And so I ended up bringing this product to North America and actually subsequently the world for this small company that made it. And this first came out in 1897.
Yeah, it's been around a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's longer than me. So this was the life changer for me. I consider it one of the 3 great medicines and health products of all time. And so this launched me into the health and wellness business, and I became the importer. Now this product is imported by a company I'm also part of. I didn't want to be in day-to-day business. I just wanted to train and so on. And this is handled by a company you probably know of called Quicksilver Scientific.
Yes,
okay.
I just did some heavy metal testing with them and had my
with the tri test, right?
Yeah, did the tri test literally.
Very good.
2 days ago.
So, okay, this is crazy, Wade. So I'm one of the founding investors of Quicksilver Scientific.
Great company, by the way.
And also deal and handle their very specialized water needs and so on and so on. So it's a nice deal. And I also, my main company is called Water and Wellness, waterandwellness.com. And we also distribute and sell products like Quinton. So anyway, that changed my life. I was immediately in the health business. And then I decided to, you know what, people in the health business don't know anything about water. That's the first thing I discovered. And so I combined this water and wellness theme, and I've done this since maybe 2007 now.
Amazing. It's a fascinating journey, and it's interesting how many people, regardless of their background, get tapped into the health industry because of some health crisis, and
precisely
they discover something or they require something to recover themselves, and then it becomes fascinating, and then you get involved, and the next thing you know, companies spring forth and similar.
That's what happens.
And almost all of the best companies I know the founders had some sort of health crisis of their own.
I
And
also
had to solve that. It's almost an exclusive cliche story, but
and so did the brains and founder of Quicksilver Scientific.
yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? So let's dive into the deep waters, if you will, and talk about deuterium, what that is, your work with it, and what is it? Is that in all water? Because I remember way back when I was in, I believe, grade 8, I was learning about deuterium because they had put a nuclear reactor in New Brunswick, Canada, and they were cooling the water. And they used coils to cool the reactors, and they said, well, then the water was deuterium afterwards. And I'm like, what does that mean? And they never really explained it to us very well.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to come back to the formal play, but I want to go to this slide, okay?
Okay, great.
Can you see it good enough? Do you think the audience sees it good enough?
I believe they can. So those watching on YouTube.
I want you, I cannot resist teaching science, okay?
Bring it on.
I know what's happened to the American science education. It's fundamentally non-existent, okay? I mean, we won't talk about that conspiracy theory, but right. I mean, people just don't know. But for those who may not know what this is a picture of, this is the periodic table of the elements. And these, even though there's more than 92, there are 92 natural ones that, let's say, were made by God in the Big Bang and after. But these make up everything in the universe. Understand, every person, every dog, every star, every asteroid, every hamburger from McDonald's, there's nothing that's made not of these things. It's just a combination. It's beyond brilliant. Only a God could think of this. Okay?
Right.
So
right.
This first lightest one, which is hydrogen, we think of hydrogen as, well, it's the smallest, simplest atom. And if you put two of those atoms together, you get hydrogen gas, H2. Bingo, you put it in a balloon, it's the lightest element and it goes up in the air. But most people don't realize there's more than one form of hydrogen. Nature did not make this simple. In fact, most of the elements have more than one form, and we call those forms isotopes of the element, okay? And, isotopes are commonly used in medicine and so on, because the different isotopes of each element have special characteristics, and they use them in almost every industry and health thing, etc. But hydrogen has 3 isotopes. We're only going to talk about 2 of them, but I'm going to name them. The simple one everybody thinks is just hydrogen is really by scientists called protium, okay? And we really, even though it's a P, we use the symbol H for this. That consists of just 1 proton and 1 electron. But right. Somewhere in the Big Bang, a proton and a neutron got together and it took over an electron, and we call that heavy hydrogen because it acts like hydrogen in most cases, but it's twice as heavy as the protium hydrogen, and it's called deuterium. Okay. And it was discovered in 1931.
Amazing.
When they realized there was heavy hydrogen, scientists who knew there was like, a sound of cheering by scientists because those who knew its implications said, holy mackerel, this will change the world. Because with a proton, neutron, and electron, they knew they could build what's called a nuclear reactor.
Right.
Because that heaviness slows down the fission reaction in nuclear reactors, it was the secret ingredient. And when that hydrogen with deuterium in it joins, like other hydrogen, with an oxygen atom, you make water. So the heavy hydrogen can join actually with even a light hydrogen and with an oxygen atom and make what we call heavy water. And that heavy water, everyone went crazy in the 1930s to make heavy water. That's all they thought about.
And
They
why did they want to make heavy water?
I'm going to tell you, because of this reason. They knew it could slow down, magically slow down neutrons to make the fission reaction in a reactor. And once you can build a reactor, and this was Heisenberg, the genius quantum physicist of Germany.
Yes.
He knew, along with Einstein, who was living in the United States at the time, they knew they could make something called an atomic bomb. And things were getting rough around the edges in the world at that time. And everybody's mouth was watering to make the ultimate weapon. And it was a race. In fact, if you really want an entertaining evening with a friend, go on Netflix and look up The Heavy Water War. And it's a phenomenally made film of exactly this event and what it led to.
Wow,
So
that's amazing. When I was first in university, my first paper I had to write on the history of physical sciences, and we
yes.
dove into Robert Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project,
boy.
all that sort of stuff, and how it was a fascinating topic. I think I got an F+ on my paper, but I thought it was a great paper, and I was really fascinated with the subject. But I was like, "Welcome to the school of undergraduate."
You got it. Well, I will tell you,
sucked, but the
well, let me tell you that first of all, my mother was an English professor. I thought I wrote great papers in high school and was acknowledged for it. But my first English paper at New York University, I got a D-, a little better than you.
A little better than me. I never F+. I don't even know what that was.
Anyway, so Germany took the lead in making enough heavy water to make a reactor to make a bomb. But everybody realized the gravity of it. And in the end, America won the war, made the bombs, delivered them to Japan, and the rest is history. Wow. But there was obviously after the war, when people realized what atomic bombs could do, they wanted to make more heavy water. So everybody wanted deuterium in the water. Nobody thought, well, what does this do? They didn't know until the 1950s that if you take water, so how much deuterium? So this deuterium, which let's call the molecule, there's, by the way, the simple hydrogen and the deuterium hydrogen, one's twice as heavy. And here's, by the way, the three molecules that are in every drop, maybe not every drop, but every bottle of water, every body of water on planet Earth. So you have a light water molecule that's just two protium hydrogens, regular hydrogens, and oxygen. Then you have heavy water, which is HDO, meaning one hydrogen, one deuterium hydrogen, and oxygen. And then there's very little of it, but there's like kind of super heavy water. We don't even mention that. That's two deuterium, hydrogen, and oxygen. And everybody wanted these two heavy waters. But there's 6 drops of deuterium water made with these two molecules that say heavy water. I'm pointing to them like you see it, but there's 6 drops of that in every liter of water on the planet. give or take a few different exceptions.
Right.
And one of the problems, it's twice as concentrated. Maybe they think 3 times as concentrated on Mars. Mars water is mostly frozen, and they think it's got 2 or 3 times more deuterium, which means absolutely cannot be consumed.
Why does Mars have so much deuterium?
Complex. No one's sure what delivered deuterium to the planets. Okay, so that's big mystery.
Right.
And then
wasn't it Amazon?
Very good.
What they deliver to Mars?
Then there are meteorological things that concentrate deuterium.
Got it.
But a big deal to know is if we took, this is what influenced me and shocked me more than perhaps anything in my water career. When I realized, remember, this heavy water is still water. If we took those 6 drops, Wade, out of water, each liter of water, enough to make a cup of water, 2 cups, one for you and one for me, it would taste like water, it would look like water, it would cook like water, everything would be just like regular water. But you and I, had we drank those cups while we have been talking, we would both be dead by now.
Wow.
That struck me more than anything in my water career, that I spent my whole life using technology to remove contaminants from water, never knowing or realizing that perhaps the most egregious contaminant in water was a form of water itself. I mean, you can just think about this for a minute.
That's a mind boggler, you know,
I mean, truly.
Yeah, it's totally a mind blower. You know, people say, hey, your mind's just been blown. That's a mind blowing statistic.
It's a mind blowing statistic.
So there must be a threshold then.
There is.
Where toxicity becomes an issue or damage to the tissue. Because what does this do? How would this cup of deuterium or heavy water kill you? And then of course, the next question is, well, how much of a little bit is going to kill me, right?
Sure. And we're going to get to all of those answers, but the reason it kills you, and we'll answer this in several ways, is that there is no other element that has an isotope that's twice as heavy as the main form of the element. Okay? It's shocking that, you know, other isotopes of other elements may be 5% heavier because they have a neutron, but they're much bigger to begin with. But hydrogen's so light to begin with, you throw in a neutron, you just doubled its weight. And it's kind of silly, but I explain to audiences so they get the severity of it. I tell them, hey, if you woke up tomorrow morning and you were 5 or 10% heavier, you'd be like really angry. But if you were twice as heavy, it'd be suicide. So that's how serious this is in the world of chemistry and biology. Because this heavy water can replace, or the deuterium in this heavy water can replace hydrogen in almost any reaction in the body. Remember, consider them chemically equivalent in their reactions, but the thing is twice as heavy. It's like going into where you work out, and I take the barbells and I just go, hey, tomorrow morning we're going to make every barbell twice as heavy. Boy, are you going to have some problems the next day with the guys working out. And that's what your body is going through. It's having to heavy lift this atom of deuterium because it's part of the water. And think of all the reactions. I mean, you know them all, you know, the hormone reactions, the enzyme reactions, Everything
Everything.
is going to change. I mean, there's
Wow.
100,000 different reactions.
Right.
All the amino acids that are connected to the genome, all of those amino acids have hydrogen in them. Those hydrogen could become, if you got too much hydrogen, they could become all deuterium. And if we drank that pure deuterium water, they would exchange so fast that even at 25% deuterium water in a volume, 25%, no animal can live longer than 5 days.
Wow.
No plant seed can germinate.
Wow.
No plant can continue living from deuterium. I mean, did you ever think this when you were preparing?
No, not at all. I've
So-
studied a lot about water and have never heard that shared in any conversation. And I've probably examined, I don't know, 200 different types of water. Probably. It's a fascinating subject. It's the great
So
mystery, right?
I'm going to
Water is the great
share.
mystery.
I'm going to share a tip for all you and your audience. If you're having a social gathering with a loved one, and you get a glass of water or a drink, vodka with water or scotch and water, etc., and the ice cubes are sitting on the bottom, you know that they have it in for you, because only deuterium ice cubes sink to the bottom.
Oh, so was this a kind of like a secret service strategy? If the ice cubes are in the bottom,
Yeah, yes,
sink.
exactly. James Bond, man.
It's funny. I always order my drinks with no ice.
Good man, good man. Because you probably would. Nobody would even notice it. Actually, just
Of course.
drink away. So anyway, I say those things to really exaggerate how serious this is. And we don't know a lot about the limit, but it appears that the body has either evolutionary wise gotten used to deuterium, even though it dramatically changed over history. For instance, 11,900 years ago, the ice age ended and all the ice and the glaciers that had formed were melting, and they started releasing an excessive amount of deuterium, because deuterium water freezes at like 2 degrees higher than regular water. So it's the first to stay frozen.
Right.
But when everything unfreezes, it just blasted it into everything. The icebergs went, the oceans increased, all the rain increased. The rain went up and precipitated into the lakes and rivers. It worldwide increased the deuterium. No one's sure, but maybe this is part of the health crisis in the world.
Wow.
Okay? That we didn't quite evolve to handle this level of deuterium. And this level, let's remind everybody again, is 6 drops. And there's so much technicality to this. I'm like giving them 99% the truth, but it would take hours to go through this. So just say
we're trying to get the illustrative component.
6 drops per liter is how much deuterium water is in most water. In mountainous areas, it can be as low. So it can be like as low as 4.5 or 5 drops. So we now will talk and change the science terminology. We're going to call the drops, we're going to say it's not 6 drops per liter, because we're going to use more information. It's 150 parts per million.
Okay, which would be the equivalent of 6 drops.
Which would be the equivalent of 6 drops. So 150 parts per million of deuterium in water. So you don't even have to say how much, just 150 parts per million gives you the amount and the volume it's in. So 150 parts per million. Now that's not a lot. And nobody even thought about it. Everybody wanted to make atomic bombs. They said, nobody even bothered. But it was the Russians who weren't part of making the atomic bomb. They were lagged way behind. And their scientists, which I consider among the most brilliant in the world, they said, I wonder what this deuterium does in biology.
Isn't it the better the question you ask will lead you in a completely different direction?
Totally.
Not everybody has the courage to ask the obvious.
Absolutely. And they did. And they were the ones who really determined, Wade, that when you have a high concentration of deuterium, more than is in regular water, life can't survive it. And that just said, oh my God. And then they wanted to know, well, what if we make it 5 drops? What if we make it 4 drops? What if we, let me rephrase it. Let's 150 parts per million is most of the water around the world. Some mountainous areas have 140 or 135. And really there's nothing less. And we can apply that same thing because everything does have, every organic molecule basically has some hydrogen in it. All our foods have it, etc. So we can apply how much deuterium hydrogen is in those things. So foods are a part of the deuterium, but because you're mostly water, and because that's the largest thing that you intake, that's where most of the deuterium comes from. So the Russian gerontologist, it started like this. And on our website, drinklightwater.com, we have a free book that people can download that tells this story. And I'm just going to give you the highlights of it. Gerontologists in Siberia couldn't figure out why a particular group, not a race, but a group of people in Siberian mountains had many, 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 many times the number of people who lived over 100 years old, centenarians. And they said, we've got to go there. This is what we do. We got to find out, what's their food and their social system, their religious practices, whatever, how they have kids and so on. And nothing panned out. Nothing was so different than the rest of the population to make it seem that to account for the number of centenarians. And after almost 10 years, someone said, because the world was getting more familiar with isotopic chemistry. They said, did you guys do an isotopic analysis of the water that they use? I mean, they're mostly water, so that has a big effect. No. I mean, frankly, nobody ever did this before. Well, let's do it. And they had 130 parts per million of deuterium. And this changed everything and blew everybody's mind that just by reducing it from 150 to 130, people not only had so many centenarians, but they lived, and I'm not going to tell you here, you can read, incredibly long lives.
So that's only just over 16% difference.
Precisely.
Made.
Precisely.
But then again, if your average age is 80 years old and you take a 16% addition, bingo, you're over 100 years old.
You're over 100. But they went well over 100. Mm-hmm. And it was not unusual for women to have children in their 60s. I will just tell you that.
Amazing.
Okay. So this started the Russian scientists on the quest for what are the biological effects of deuterium? How do we get everybody in the world was concentrating the deuterium, right? Because they wanted to build reactors and atomic bombs. But these guys said, how do we get the deuterium out of the water? And that's one of your questions, and it should be answered. I can only tell you it's very hard, very expensive, and there's only 3 countries in the world that make it.
It's funny because I'm a contrarian by nature, and I always say, well, look at what everybody else is doing and do the opposite. You have a higher chance of being successful. So everybody's chasing deuterium. You're like, let's go the opposite way.
And what's interesting is that they did and still have more research by far than anyone, the Russian scientists. And they did not divulge this for quite a long time. And make the world realize this. And, you know, the country was kind of off on its own for much of our lifetime. So, you know, I'm not sure the real reason, but the world didn't hear about this for quite a long time. And this slide is just a quick thing that I can point out that the first 58 to 61, the first correlation to growth and longevity was associated with getting rid of deuterium. And this was the Russians who figured this out. And the Russians and the Hungarians and the Romanians took this whole science and ran with it better than anybody else. And then a very famous person, Gabor Sommelier of Hungary, you can see in 2001, he publishes a major work called The Biological Effects of Deuterium Depletion, and people are starting to get it. I don't know if you know or you heard or know of the fact that about 2 weeks ago, we had a deuterium depletion summit that for a whole day.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
And you should have been told about it, and I apologize for that. But we brought the world experts together for an entire day. And it was very technical. You would have been thrilled by it. And I say this because the last gentleman, who is perhaps like the most deserving of a Nobel Prize in deuterium depletion, he figured out, why does deuterium hurt us? And it especially hurts the mitochondria,
which is our energy furnace, and so much.
And it's more. It's actually more than that. And I'm going to go back to my first slide, and I want everybody to read this. First, I do want to just show this slide, which is a medical disclaimer. You can go through it, because I will say, or maybe accidentally say, a few things I might not.
Right. I'll read it.
This is a very
on the audio. The contents of this presentation are for informational purposes and not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
So many people in the world are now using, and I will just say it and end it, deuterium depleted water in a very serious medical way. Okay. So here's how I see it. This was my conclusion as I learned more about deuterium depletion. I've known about it and looked at it for 10 years and never thought of doing anything with it. But as a water scientist, it just fascinated me. But all the work was over in Russia, and I didn't know anything about Russian scientists. But here's my viewpoint. As the focus of health science shifts from free radicals and antioxidants, the world you and I kind of came from, to metabolism and mitochondria, we're going much more down the rabbit hole in the direction of figuring out how life works. The benefits of depleting excess endogenous deuterium qualifies as the most significant optimal health and anti-strategy of our time. This is my belief.
Wow, that's a
based
profound
upon
statement.
what I have learned. So I'm going to just show you this because you're a techie guy. I just want to show you in the Big Bang that, let's say, we're all going to agree the universe started. The first two things that were created were a neutron and proton, and about a picosecond later, you already had deuterium, okay? So it was ubiquitous. Fascinating, Wade, that deuterium, the proton and neutron, had the temperature not cooled too quickly in the Big Bang. We're talking about microseconds here. Had it not cooled, all of that deuterium would have become helium. And this would have never existed. It was like a mistake somehow in creation. And here, I think, because I'm forever trying to teach an audience science, I want you to all know that the mass of the entire universe, 74% of it is hydrogen, 24% of it is helium, and all the other 90 elements that make up everything we know is only 2%.
At that dang old 2%, right?
So we're coming down to, so this gentleman, I'm coming back to this slide, Dr. Abdullah Al-Gun really stole the show. And he is from Istanbul, okay? And no one ever heard of him, but Abdullah Al-Gun, Dr. Abdullah Al-Gun figured out why deuterium destroys mitochondria. And we're going to see a little bit of that. So 6 drops of heavy water in every liter of water. And we think only, but it has a devastating effect on our health. And it didn't through all life have 6 drops. It may have had 3 drops or 2 drops at one point in beginning of life. We don't know.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. Supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
There is one anomaly that's so serious it begs to be answered, and that is the lowest deuterium natural water and form of water on the planet is in Antarctica.
Wow.
Most of Antarctica snow and ice, if we melted it down, would be 89 parts per million.
Wow.
Okay? You're looking at...
Is that because it froze at a time far deep into the past, or do they know why that is?
They don't know. Okay. It is, and I'm, it is perhaps the most secretive place on the earth. You just can't go there without major qualifications and research and so on. But I know from people who've done research there that people who go to the same cafeteria and mess hall and all of that together. Common conversations revolve around their improvement in health.
Interesting.
Very.
While they're there.
While they're there, but people go there for 1, 2, 3 years.
Right.
I mean, you can get. I would say that the health benefits can show up in a week in deuterium depletion in the area of depression and behavioral pathologies.
Wow.
Okay. I did want you to see this slide and your audience slide, that this depicts the ice age, which melted and released a lot of the deuterium. The Russians discovered the Russians and the Romanians were the most advanced in depleting deuterium from water. And they used the process. There's no common technology for doing it. I mean, distillation itself won't do it. Reverse osmosis won't even touch it. Deionization or ion exchange doesn't do it. The only thing that practically makes it is something called vacuum-assisted fractional distillation rectification. Okay? It's a mouthful.
That's a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Yes, it is.
Can you say that one more time so we can make sure that we get that on the
vacuum-assisted fractional distillation rectification.
Okay, what is that?
It is something that you might as well see since we're on the topic. It is hundreds of stainless steel tubes, a foot in diameter and 3 stories high, in which you heat water in these tubes, and these tubes have very special things inside them that are the secret sauce. And as the molecules rise up with the benefit of a vacuum and the heat forcing them to rise, there is just a very, very, very slow separation of the lighter molecule from the heavier molecule. And the deuterium stays kind of on the bottom, and the light water goes to the top.
And thus,
and it takes maybe
the company name came from.
Maybe you can make 1 gallon per hour with this,
Wow.
with one of these tubes that costs $50,000.
Wow.
That's why it's expensive. So we actually make, just to break things up a little, as you know, regular water is 150, and we make in Russia 2 waters. You can see we make a 10 part per million water. This is the lowest in the world. And we also make the lowest in the world, a 5 part per million. One is the workhorse, and one is in a glass bottle, only 1/2 liter. And it's a bit on the pricey side.
What's a bottle like that go for?
So this is about 8 liters, is with a subscription, and we only do subscriptions, is about it's $160 per 8 liters. Now, what's important is that people make, other companies, these 3 other companies, make different amounts. No one makes it this low. We do this because you don't consume this directly. You dilute it.
Okay.
Because you dilute it and you don't want to be drinking this low, we don't have to ship so much. So to get the water that the Siberians got, 130 parts per million, and if somebody is young and in great health and so on, we might suggest that 130 parts per million you drink, this would dilute this 6 times. So you would add 6 bottles to this bottle and end up with 7 bottles. So its cost isn't as much as one would think. It's probably, at 6 bottles, it's probably less than a visit to Starbucks a day. Okay.
I got it. Quick question that comes up is, how do you measure the amount of deuterium that might be in the water that someone currently is drinking?
With that machine.
Okay.
I'm really glad I brought some slides because
Yeah, this is great.
So this is a machine that is called a deuterium analyzer. They cost about $150,000 to $175,000. And we can measure any water sample. But more importantly, we have this to serve our customers to measure their saliva to see how well they are doing. Because of all the sources of deuterium you have, and this is what ketogenic diet is all about. It's going to be basically battling carbs against fats, right?
Yep.
That carbs are typically high in deuterium and fats are low in deuterium.
I see. Is that because of the carbohydrates tend to be more water rich than fat molecules, or is it just because of the storage mechanism from fat?
It's the storage mechanism of the plant that produced it.
Okay.
Plants know. In fact, probably all species know over the long period of evolution, something's not right about having too much deuterium around.
Okay.
Okay? It messes with some stuff. So a plant has evolved to keep deuterium out of its leaves and shuttle it to the root. So in the case of a sweet potato, if you're on deuterium depletion, you probably don't want the sweet potato because it's taking all the sugar that it created, okay, and shoving it in the sweet potato. So that's an issue. So the interesting, and people might be interested to know that, like a coconut water actually has more deuterium than regular water.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, a lot of people get disappointed about that. It has about not 150, but 156 roughly.
But a little bit's a lot.
A little bit's a lot. And I'm told that is why monkeys shun coconut water and go for the meat and the fat in the coconut itself.
Interesting.
Okay? So after a person has been on deuterium depletion program, I would suggest, let's say, 2 to 3 months. We suggest they have their saliva tested by us. We send them a kit from our own company, but we call that Deuteriumtest.com. And we will test anyone's water supply if they think they have some magic. Many people think the water at my uncle's house in the mountains of Idaho, it has to be deuterium depleted. It's so good. Okay, we get that.
So you got to.
And rarely is it deuterium depleted, just
right.
to let you know. And but interestingly, at the same time, and I will say that this device, this deuterium analyzer that we own, we have benefited from our relationship with Quicksilver Scientific because they have such an advanced science staff and laboratories that we don't need for daily business because we're just really water brokers. They maintain and take care of this machine and do all the testing under their certified lab status. So they do all the testing, and the guys are all PhDs and so on. So we send a kit out. This kit comes back. You suck up your saliva into a little special plastic device, throw it in the mail, send it in, it goes to here, they test your saliva, and then we see, hey, you're drinking too much beer, or you're drinking too much coconut water, etc. So fats, a ketogenic diet is very helpful for this, obviously. The lowest food in deuterium, common food, happens to be lard.
Wow, interesting.
At about 110 parts per million. Now, here's another interesting fact. when you metabolize a fat like lard or grass-fed butter, and why do I say grass-fed butter? I say grass-fed butter because rainwater that is feeding the grass the cows are eating and the grass itself have less deuterium than the animal that is being fed grain, because grains are higher in deuterium.
Okay.
I mean, this is, there's no handling this subject lightly. This is like, you know, this is the Cub Scouts turning into the Navy SEALs, okay?
Right. Right.
This is a complex topic. There's no question about it. There's no simple stuff here. So grass-fed butter, grass-fed meats, anything grass-fed you want, because grass is lower in deuterium than grains, which is the alternative. So, and that goes for your own grains. You know, you really don't, you want to stop eating like cereals that are going to be higher in deuterium. And there's things that you can compensate for. When I say look for the ketogenic diet, et cetera, I'm saying it's to make this as economical an experience as possible, because changing your diet is maybe a little inconvenient, but it's cheap compared to another way to bypass it, and that's to drink more deuterium-depleted water. But
Right.
that's much more expensive. So I break the rule all the time. I drink water that's, and I did this more for my own experimentation, I drink water that's 80 parts per million. That's mixing one of these with one of these, of regular water. You just mix this with your favorite water. I happen to use RO water from our AquaTrue system.
Right.
But
You do 1-to-1.
1-to-1, 80 parts per million. My body is about 105 parts per million deuterium.
What would the average person come in at?
Oh, wait, you mean the average person that
You're
was
testing, that you're running tests on, per se? That's,
oh, it's really all over the place because of how long they've done it. Some are doing it for serious health reasons. Okay, so they're taking 80. Somebody, a young guy that's 30 and in great health, he's doing 130 parts per million, not 80. So if you're the average person, we basically say a good place to start is 115 parts per million. And I'm going to explain why. 115 parts per million, because a magic threshold in general happens to be, once you get below 120, a whole cascade of metabolic and mitochondrial benefits unfold. Amazing amount of physical energy.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. That's amazing. Yeah, of course, because if this is interrupting ATP production and mitochondrial energy.
Well, it's saving, but this is not interrupting it. This is allowing it to continue.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. If not this.
Exactly. Yes, interrupting the decline.
Correct.
So, and I don't know if you've ever seen the curve, Wade, but pretty much mitochondria increase until about you're 25, and then it's straight line loss of mitochondria till the time you die.
Correct.
Very precise. And this is blowing that curve out. So for me, I sometimes people say, like, I'm 76, that I have like an embarrassing amount of energy. And it's just kind of, you know, sometimes I feel silly. I don't mind running in a parking lot to get to the front door of the store. It's like, and many people report this, I have to spill energy. I always park in the furthest parking place now, as kind of an acknowledgement of, I have so much energy, I'm just going to use it. I'll get a little exercise in, and hey, if people laugh at this 76-year-old guy running in the Costco parking lot, so be it. I'll survive.
They should be asking you, how is it that you're running 76 through the parking lot as opposed to making which would probably be the most common reaction. That is just remarkable.
So you, above all, would I mean, want to ask, well, what does this do to perform physical sports, athletic performance?
Yes.
I will tell you, it appears to me, we really don't know. Most of the research in this is not being shared. And my guess is, though I don't know for sure, this is going to change sports forever. Every record,
I can't wait to try it.
Every record is going to be broken. Now, and I'm thinking really more where the mitochondria have to do energy. I'm talking long distance racing, long distance running, and you know, maybe the 220 or 440 race, things where you're really all out all the time. I have no idea, nor have I ever heard what this does for a weightlifter. Unknown to our world. So maybe we
can run some tests.
No, without question. So I do know there is an entity that will go unnamed that has applied this to football players, and what kind of shocked them was almost everything about being a quarterback was improved, from accuracy to the thinking in a situation. It was, I mean, it's such a territory that's about to be unveiled. And then the depression part, I mean, it makes you a happier person. Beautiful. So that is a remarkable thing. I mean, I think this will change the behavioral sciences and how we treat people and psychiatric care and so on dramatically, because we didn't realize the effects of deuterium in this.
Well, I think we're getting close to the hour, and I want to be mindful of time. Let's talk about what you might suggest. Someone says, Robert, I love what you're talking about this. Number one, I want to learn more. Number two, I want to get tested. Number three, I want to try this and run an experiment, say, for however long you suggest, to say, hey, this is a sufficient amount of time to get to that kind of that point where we can get under 120, 115,
right,
and see the effects. And maybe you could suggest some potential timelines, what would be reasonable, how would we try this? I'm very curious, and I'm ready to do the experiment now.
So let's separate this. Let's partition this. We're going to talk about regular healthy people, kind of like you and me. And there's yet a whole nother application that we really can't freely talk about.
Correct. We understand the
that we will
Let's
talk
just deal with
about
the health part.
To those of you privately, and recommend things and other things to read and books to buy to see what's going on. That is the most profound change for us when we see things get fixed. But for all these other enjoyments, I mean, which are, you know, from energy to almost every aspect of having better performing mitochondria. And you know as well as I that the new direction of nutraceuticals is all in, you know, NAD plus and PQQ and AMPK, all these mitochondrial support nutrients.
Yes, anything that supports the production of energy, because there's an energy crisis going on in the world. Everyone's like, I need more energy. I feel quote unquote depressed, which oftentimes correlates with the lack of energy, which obviously affects how we feel.
Here's a very interesting thing. You and I both know our world is filled with a lot of fake news, okay?
Indeed.
I found this. This is a piece of fake news I want everyone to be aware of. And I think you know that one of the greatest proponents of fake news and censorship happens to be Wikipedia. Wikipedia has destroyed natural medicine to to shreds, okay? I mean, they just laugh at everything from naturopaths to homeopaths and so on. And they didn't skip deuterium-depleted water because the only, and we really have a chance to change this because we have real data and it's probably going to happen. But this Dr. Harriet Hall, who's the skepdoc, I don't know if you've ever seen her, but she pretty much toes the line of big pharma, okay?
Right.
And she has a critical thing here, and it's kind of funny. She reported that the overwhelming majority of DDW studies does not involve humans. Totally ridiculous. There's hundreds of studies that involve humans, okay? And they may have done 1,000 studies in the 50s on mice and so on, but there's just an abundance of this, just like there is on hydrogen. So, and she says, she concluded, I don't see any good science-based evidence that would make me fear deuterium. Poor girl. I'll stick to tap water, thank you. Yes, we would just like you to continue with tap water. So anyway, fake news is in the world. And Wikipedia, once again, is the proponent of it. And frankly, I get a lot of benefit from Wikipedia too, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But they haven't been kind to our industry. Okay, so if you're a normal person, we suggest that you start out with 115 parts per million. And that is a dilution that we call 1 to 3. Any volume of the deuterium depleted water, and you add 3 times that amount to it. So this is a 2-liter bottle, our workhorse. So you're going to add 6 liters to it.
Got it.
That's going to make you enough water, probably for someone like you, probably the packet of this, it comes in 4 bottles. I would say for a person's month supply, our standard subscription is 2 packets. And I believe
how much would that cost? About how much?
that would cost, that our standard price for that 2 packets in a month is $320.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there is some initial benefit that our people have given your clients. Okay.
Okay, great. We'll put all that in the show notes.
I'm sorry that I don't know, because
that's all right.
I'm
We'll get all that
involved.
stuff in the show notes. It doesn't matter.
I'm too involved in the science to think about it.
I get it.
So you use this for as much of things that involve water as you can. You need no more Starbucks. You have to make your own coffee, your own tea, your own drinking water, beverages that you're used to. Now, here's where I fall down, because I'm about as I'm about as incompetent in the kitchen as anyone could possibly be. Mm-hmm. And I buy macadamia milk.
Right.
I would like to tell your audience, if you can make your own macadamia milk with your deuterium depleted water, God bless you, and you should do it. I cannot, so I just have to suck it up and take more deuterium depleted water,
right,
to compensate for that. I was just about to tell you, like, I still drink wine, okay? Not in a great amount, maybe a full glass in an evening or every 2 days. I compensate. I know that wine has the same amount of deuterium as water, okay? Maybe a little less due to the fermentation process, but pretty much the same. I compensate that by taking an espresso glass of this water. It's very loosey-goosey. I mean, you don't have to be measuring
with it, or just you take a shot.
No, it doesn't matter. 2 hours later, the next day, it doesn't matter. You're all just pouring this water with deuterium in it into this vessel, and it's averaging out.
I see.
If you don't have to boil vegetables in this, you don't have to steam with this, you don't have to do anything, just the things you're downing. You know, your main drinking water, Food preparation in which water is a major ingredient, like a soup, okay, should be your water, or a broth or bone broth, something like this. Like, when I buy bone broth, I will dilute it with some of this water, because the bone broth you can't change it, right? You drink as is. But if you were making it from scratch, you'd want to use your 115 part per million deuterium depleted water. Then after 2 to 3 months, you should request a test. Unless somebody has a special reason, there is not a good reason to test yourself before. I can tell you, if we tested your entire audience, and I don't know a single one of them, you would all come out between 148 and 152. And I'm not sure I'd like to say to your audience, save the money.
How much is tests? How much is testing?
The test is, we have specials when you're a customer, but the standard retail price of the test is like $199. And it's something you should probably do in 2 to 3 months, and then maybe 6 months. And once you nailed it down, your habits and so on, and you're going to continue this for life. This isn't a temporary thing. It is a commitment. If you really want to enjoy these benefits, you have to keep the deuterium, your endogenous deuterium, low, meaning below 120. If you can keep it below 120, you'll have a different life. And if you don't, you'll have a different life. Maybe once a year is good to do a test, something like that. It's inconsequential. But I wouldn't do it beforehand unless you are living in Siberia or something, and you might have low TDS water or low deuterium water. Interestingly, at Quicksilver Scientific, at the facility, because the water comes from the Colorado mountains, that water coming into their facility is 137 parts per million of deuterium.
Interesting.
So they have a great benefit. And guess what everybody tests at who works there? 137 parts per million.
Isn't that fascinating? Wow, that's
so.
Well, I'm
anyway, we covered a lot.
We certainly covered a lot. You've really gone deep into this, and I think as soon as we get done with this, I'm going to figure out how I can do a test. I'm going to I'll do the test first, and then I'll just as
in your position, as like kind of a celebrity person, you should. What the heck not?
And then I'll do the test, and then we'll get you back in a few months, and we can just kind of break down a little bit more, because I know you're holding back a lot of information just to be concise.
No, to be safe.
To be safe as well. As we know, we are living in interesting times.
Yeah, I have some very incredible stories to tell you at some time in the future.
Robert, can you share with us maybe any information of how to follow you, how to learn more about this, where the research is, and so of course.
Okay, so we have everything. We have every study. We are kind of the information resource on deuterium depletion in English-speaking countries. So go on our website, drinklightwater.com. There's just, it's every day it's being filled with new things and studies. And people who are very interested should contact us directly. They may contact me at ROBT Slovak at lightwaterscientific.com for questions that we can't even post on the website or information. Right. Things about cancer and things like this that are going on. Mm-hmm. So people can contact us. We're very responsive. We have a staff and great customer service people. So there are about 6 files that I like to send somebody first. And I'm going to send, right after we finish, I'm going to send those files to you. You take a look at them. And if you would like to make those available to your audience, go for it.
Thank you very much, Robert. Any final words that you'd like to share before we wrap this up?
It's a serious undertaking. Make no bones about it. I would like to tell you that we expect to be the first actual producer of deuterium-depleted water in America, and we will build a pilot. We are planning and getting all the things ready to build a pilot plant to make deuterium-depleted water, which will be a great savings to our customers, instead of importing all this things through ships and containers and all of that.
Robert, this is one of the most fascinating podcast interviews that I've done in a while. Your clarity around what this is and its potential impacts for people. And obviously you're a living example. From all our guests who are listening to us or watching on YouTube, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. I enjoyed myself immensely.
Yeah, just sharing this knowledge. And for all the listeners, I am going to go through with this and I'm going to experiment with this. I love doing experiments at Bioptimizers. I think this is going to be a great one. And I look forward to living a lower deuterium lifestyle. That's our guest today, Robert Slovak. I want to thank you for joining us today. Have an awesome day. Lots of love. Take care of your health. And we'll see you on the next episode.
At Bioptimizers, our mission is to fix digestion. And a cornerstone of digestion is gut flora. P3OM is our patented probiotic formula. In fact, we call it the Navy SEALs of probiotics. You see, strong proteolytic or protein digesting activity is paramount to having a healthy gut flora. And of course, P3OM provides that. The good news is, unlike weaker probiotics, P3OM survives the digestion process. What it does is it basically multiplies the good guys while protecting you against pathogens, or what some people call the bad guys. P3OM really helps to rebuild your digestion. And what that allows you to do is to maximize nutrient uptake, energy, and metabolism. To find out more of how P3OM can help you, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.